racing is a test of skill, speed, and coordination as horse and rider run a cloverleaf pattern around barrels. Barrel racing first came about in 1928 in Texas, and originally had 2 barrels. It wasn't until a few years later that the 3rd barrel was added, and then recognized as a sport in 1948. Barrel racing was introduced as a women-only sport because before this, women weren't allowed to participate in rodeos. The tack used for barrel racing are very similar to normal Western tack, but are lighter and minimize weight. These lighter saddles have a high pommel and cantle to keep the rider more secure during the fast, tight turns. Riders wear a tucked-in long-sleeved Western shirt and jeans and boots. Riders also often wear Western hats and fancy belt buckles. The barrels used in competitions must be 55-gallon metal barrels that are enclosed on both ends. If a horse ends up running into them or knocking them over, it mustn't harm them. Riders can choose which side to start on the pattern based on the horse's strongest side. If a barrel is knocked over, the rider will face a 5-second penalty, and if the horse deviates from the pattern, they will be disqualified. The winner is decided by who completed this in the fastest time without knocking barrels. Barrel racing is judged in a 4D format. The first division is the fastest time, second is the fastest time plus half a second, third is the fastest time plus a second, and the fourth is the fastest time plus 2 seconds. Depending on what competition you go to, it can change, depending on the barrel race you're running. There are 4 different categories of barrel racing. Divisional. This is where the most amateur barrel races race. Jackpot. This is very similar to divisional, but they pay more. Futurity. I don't know if I'm saying that right. These are for younger horses only, with the best footing out of all categories of barrel racing. And finally, rodeo. The most well-known between riders and non-horsey people. They often gather the largest crowds, and the ground is not ideal for horses due to all of the wear. The most common horses used in barrel racing are the American Quarter Horse, American Paint Horse, and the stunning Appaloosa. According to the Ruby Buckle, there is 0 tolerance for mistreatment of horses at any point during the event. This includes, but is not limited to, stall area, warm-up arena, holding pen and main arena. Mistreatment includes, but not limited to, excessive jerking, spurring, whipping, slapping, abuse with any device, or any other act intended to cause trauma or injury to horse. Contestants will be disqualified. But we see so much mistreatment in barrel racing. Why is that? The most common forms of abuse in the arena are starfishing, harsh use of the bit, and extreme whipping. Another important thing to mention is the more often than not poor equitation. If you click on any video on YouTube with barrel racing, you will see more than not that barrel racers are exhibiting these behaviors. There are people who don't do this, but sadly they are not the majority and become very few and far between. I believe the answer to why there is so much abuse is because there's such a low bar to entry. Nobody really has to learn how to ride, they just get on a horse and run the barrels. Barrel racing can improve. It is not the sport itself that is abusive, it is the riders. The sport can be improved on stricter judging when it comes to poor equitation and abuse. Remember, it isn't the sport that is abusive, it is the rider.